This presentation was paid for by CGTN. The opinions, views, and claims expressed are those of CGTN and may not necessarily reflect those of CNBC.
Economy, innovation, culture, exploration. Discover the vibrant pulse of China's economy and dive into the rich tapestry of its culture. Embark on a journey of exploration with Meet China. Here, your journey begins.
Hi everyone, welcome to Meet China. I'm Lulu. Today we have three stories that showcases how innovation blends tradition with modernity. We will start with a sweet success in China's southernmost Hainan province. A chocolate brand thrives in Hainan's free trade boom. And then high-tech fishing feeds billions of people in a sustainable manner. And finally, how Peking Opera's timeless art gets a fresh twist. Let's get started. Entrepreneur Mengxin Li turned Hainan's free trade perks into a chocolate empire. His company now produces some 800 kilograms of chocolates daily, mixing global expertise with Hainan's local cocoa. This is a proof that Hainan's business boom is more than just hot air.
It was because of this mint-flavored chocolate, a Canada-originated chocolate factory finds a new home in Hainan, China.
This is Mr. Mengxin Li, president of the chocolate factory in Hainan. 10 years ago, he himself might not have believed that chocolate would play such a big role in his career. Because of a single bite of the chocolate, Mr. Meng not only became a fan of chocolate, but also a chocolate businessman.
In 2015, we began to enter the Chinese market as distributors. We participated in large exhibitions such as the China International Import Expo and the Canton Fair. But at that time, we never thought about finding any particularly good locations to build production facilities. It had never crossed our minds.
It was during his visit to Hainan as a chocolate exhibitor at the first edition of the Hainan Expo that he decided to build a chocolate factory there.
On the day before the conclusion of the first edition of the Hainan Expo, we went to Milan in Jiangdong district for a business tour. At that time, they interpreted the policies of Hainan for us. And the national plan to build a free trade port in Hainan in the future also impressed us.
Once the decision was made, they couldn't wait a single day to build their chocolate factory.
The first edition of the Hainan Expo, if I remember correctly, was held in May 2021. In October of that year, we signed the agreement with Hainan at the CIIE. We also set a record by obtaining our business license just 3 hours after submission. In April 2022, we began the renovation of our temporary factory. By July, we had completed the entire renovation of the temporary sterile workshop. Over the past few years since arriving in Hainan, we've seen that the place is constantly changing. In just 1 week, you might find that some buildings have suddenly sprung up, almost empty.
Similar to previous years, the chocolate in their stock room was sold out before the end of the expo, so the factory had to work around the clock to replenish supplies.
The Green Chocolate Factory, let's check out inside.
I can smell the aroma of the chocolate. Is the production line imported as well?
This is made in China. Chinese machinery has a huge market around the globe. Many chocolate machines abroad are also made in China, and we are quite mature in this area. The daily production volume of this machine is quite high, reaching up to 800 kilograms. Only through several cycles of heating and cooling, the crystalline structure of the chocolate becomes stable.
More importantly, Hainan provides natural advantages for producing chocolate. As we know, chocolate is made from cocoa beans. The cultivation conditions for cocoa trees are extremely demanding. They thrive best in tropical regions within 20 degrees latitude north and south of the equator. And Hainan Island is located precisely within this zone.
I didn't know it before coming here that cocoa trees can grow in Hainan, for example in Sanya, Ling Qiuyue, Xinglong, Wanning, etc.
If we zoom out for a second, in the second half of 2020, for the first time, a 500-kilogram batch of Hainan origin cocoa beans valued at around 3,000 euros was exported and shipped to Belgium. In July 2021, cocoa beans from Hainan province made their debut on the global stage by being selected as one of the top 50 entries in the International Cocoa Awards for Biodiversity 2021. These achievements mark huge leaps in global recognition of the quality of China's homegrown cocoa beans. Hainan's beautiful natural scenery also plays a key role in promoting its chocolate. They create a tantalizing combination, a feast for both the eyes and taste buds.
On the packages of the chocolate, you can see the landmarks or iconic spots of Haikou City. For example, this one, this is the famous Parkade Old Street, and this is their Centennial Bridge, and this is the Yundong Library.
Apart from enjoying the chocolate, people will also open it to see this card, which features some of China's most beautiful landscapes. Our company's vision is to create a homemade world-class chocolate. Next, we will focus on Hainan chocolate and ocean-themed chocolate, aiming to promote the free trade port through our products.
We are quite interested in the concepts of natural ingredients and Hainan.
And things continue to progress at a fast pace. At the booth, Mr. Meng was busy meeting old and new friends, as well as partners.
After we tasted it yesterday, we went back and held an urgent meeting. We all agreed that this product indeed met our expectations.
What time was the urgent meeting?
We yesterday held the meeting until 1 a.m.
I witnessed their simple yet swift signing ceremony for cooperation.
The changes in Hainan over these years can indeed be described with one word: astonishing. This is not only reflected in the overall environment, but also the infrastructure. We noticed significant opportunities when doing business here. The most direct evidence is the increase in orders from abroad, like Africa and the Middle East. For example, we mainly export leisure food to the Middle East. As for Saudi Arabia, we focus more on agarwood, one of Hainan's precious trees.
This lady is a new islander in Hainan, having migrated from Inner Mongolia in northern China.
It has an international-oriented status. I myself have been engaged in foreign trade for over a decade, so it is also an advantage for my career development. In terms of the business environment, the procedures for tax returns are no longer that complicated. Everything now can be handled online, which is very convenient.
This is Mr. Brian Jameson, another businessman from Canada. He and Mr. Meng were both exhibitors at the Canadian Pavilion during last year's Hainan Expo. Brian said that while they were too busy to set up a sales booth this year, they didn't want to miss the chance to gain a broader understanding of the expo, explore more opportunities here, and discover the whole of Hainan Island.
I try to be as open as possible. I try to work with partners who are experts in a certain category. So I don't want to reinvent the whole car. I've already reinvented the wheel. Now I want to find a car company that wants to put my technology in their cars.
Besides Meng's chocolate factory, I found that several other exhibitors are also considering setting in Hainan. For example, some beef exporters from Uruguay are exploring the possibility.
Process the beef in Hainan to send to China mainland with 0%. So that's why it's a huge opportunity for both Uruguayan exporters and Chinese importers from located based in Hainan.
Given the rapid pace of development in Hainan, let's mark the date for next year's Hainan Expo and get set to see even more exhibitors setting up factories here.
This presentation was paid for by CGTN. The opinions, views, and claims expressed are those of CGTN and may not necessarily reflect those of CNBC.
China supplies the world with its aquaculture, and the Lingding Ranch No.3 is a next-generation marvel. A massive floating farm in Zhuhai's waters using AI-driven feeding, real-time monitoring, and eco-friendly designs, producing tons of proteins without having to overfish the ocean. This is a glimpse into how the country plans to nourish billions of people while protecting its marine life.
It almost looks like the water is boiling. But what you're actually seeing is a feeding frenzy of pompano fish, perhaps just days away from harvest, then straight to the table.
Oh, how about that? Twofer, twofer.
But the days of labor-intensive ocean farming may soon be a thing of the past. At first glance, it looks like little more than a postage stamp on the South China Sea. But up close, it is much larger and far more efficient than traditional fish farming in what's known as gravity nets. Zhao Haiyan has worked here for 2 years as a diver and platform operator.
This is safe, scientific, and smart breeding.
It's allowed China to become the world leader in ocean farming, producing exponentially more fish than its closest competition. You don't have to be a scientist to see that right now the fishing farm is empty. They're in between cycles, but they harvest basically 3 different qualities of fish. The lowest would be grouper and pompano, and then several species of catfish, and finally the most elevated would be salmon and yellowfin tuna. And yellowfin tuna take 3 years to reach maturity. Feeding is done automatically, and salinity, along with other levels, is constantly monitored. An array of underwater cameras also keeps an eye on the fish, which is crucial to prevent disease from setting in among the tightly packed population.
We can monitor the fish, and our remote supervisors, the scientists, can do the same.
And if there is a potential problem, Wang Shen, vice president of the enterprise operating the high-tech system, explains.
We have experts and scientists constantly monitoring the facility. If there's a bacterial or infection issue, they can provide a diagnosis along with a plan to address it.
Giant fishing trawlers that patrol the seas run the risk of overfishing and cleaning out the world's oceans of fish. That's the reason that ocean harvesting is becoming so popular. It's economical and also much better for the environment.
Overfishing leads to the depletion of fish resources. However, with this system, we ensure a stable and continuous supply of marine protein, which is especially important.
It's hard work. Between cycles, crews spend 2 months mending and cleaning the protective nets. This part of the South China Sea is also prone to typhoons. The solid structure provides stability, and ahead of a storm, crews can use drones to feed the fish.
Our entire marine ranching operation, especially the modern development, which we call modern fishery, has many advantages.
Been a nice ride.
Not the least of which is ensuring a steady supply of protein for China and billions of people globally.
This presentation was paid for by CGTN. The opinions, views, and claims expressed are those of CGTN and may not necessarily reflect those of CNBC.
Star performer Chang Qiuyue is not just preserving Peking Opera, she's reinventing it. As a Xun School inheritor, she revives forgotten classics, redesigns costumes for modern eyes, and even tweaks stories to resonate with young audiences. Yet, each movement, each note stays true to this century-old artistry. And her mission is to make this traditional opera look and sound breathlessly alive.
Peking Opera, an art form with over 200 years of history, carries the essence of traditional Chinese theatre. Featuring clearly defined role types, Sheng, Gan, Jing, and Chou, it showcases the artistry of singing, reciting, acting, and martial arts, and has a uniquely refined and stylized performance technique. Among the 4 dance styles, Mei, Shang, Cheng and Xun. The Xun style is known for its lighter, more graceful singing compared to the others. Artists who practice this style describe it as refreshing and uplifting, full of vitality and energy, evoking the spirit of spring. For many Peking opera performers, the journey begins with early exposure to the art within their family unit. Chang Qiuyue was no exception. Her connection to Peking opera was deeply influenced by her father.
Growing up, I was constantly immersed in the sounds of my father practicing his vocal techniques. That's how I fell in love with Peking opera. You know the play Hong Niao? I was mesmerized by the female performers with elaborate headdresses that was so beautiful. I used to call them anti-red. So whenever there was a performance with anti-red, my father would take me to the theater to watch it. That's how I became a little opera fan, dreaming of one day becoming that radiant figure on stage.
Chang's childhood experiences at the theater inspired her passion for the arts, especially for the Huadan role. But her decision to pursue a career as a performer was also influenced by a more practical reason.
When my father enrolled me in opera school, he told me it was just to strengthen my body. He said once my body was stronger, I could pursue any career I wanted. At first, I was assigned Dan roles. Over time, my teachers noticed I was petite and suggested I train for the Dan role instead. My grandmother strongly opposed it, afraid I wouldn't be able to endure the hardship. But I loved it. I found joy in the challenge and never grew tired of it. That's why I chose this profession, and I have never regretted it. Peking opera has shaped my personality. People see me now and think I'm a typical bold, carefree Beijing girl. But I wasn't always like this. I used to be extremely shy and reserved, too timid to speak up. After learning opera, I became a completely different person. Maybe playing so many fiery, strong-willed women and practicing Jingbai had a subtle influence on my character over time. But deep down, my original nature is quite different. We have a play in the Xun School repertoire called Kang Yuchuan. It's a story of contrasting extremes, sorrow and joy. In the first part, I play a tragic character named Yu Suqiu, and in the second part, I portray the cheerful, lively lady named Han Yu. Actually, my own personality is more like Yu Suqiu, but after studying opera, I feel like my personality has come to resemble Han Yu more. Perhaps everyone has two sides to their nature, but I prefer playing Yu Suqiu. I'm not particularly fond of Han Yu. The audience feedback is quite the opposite. They say I perform Han Yu better than Yu Suqiu. Sometimes it's really contradictory because my own experience and the audience's perception are different.
Beyond the artistry of performance, Peking opera also has rich visual beauty. The colors and styles of the costumes carry the personality of the characters and the emotional shifts in the storyline.
My fans call me Rainbow Sister. In The Matchmaker, I wear 7 different costumes, with each one reflecting a different moment in the storyline. Bright yellow is cheerful, meaning character hopes Cui Yingying and Zhang Sheng will finally be together. Pale pink and soft lavender represent the romantic longing under the moonlight. It's all part of the plot. When dressing to deliver a love letter, the character wears orange because she's happy at that moment. When the lover's happy ending is fulfilled, I wear light pink. During the performance commemorating Master Xun Huisheng that day, the 4 of us performed the entire play together. The other 3 actresses were already wearing red, so I chose a softer color scheme, pink and orange, inspired by the modern Modernity color palette. I love the soft pastel colors that are popular now, and the candy-colored costumes.
When it comes to costume design, Chang attempts to blend traditional Peking opera costumes with modern aesthetics, making them more appealing and visually engaging for today's audiences.
I personally oversee every aspect of my costumes, from selecting the fabrics to choosing the embroidery thread and the decorative trims and edging. Costumes for Huadan have always been known for their beauty and elegance. Master Xun was a pioneer in costume innovation, taking bold steps to improve and transform the costumes. He introduced the Liu Xiangtou, 3-tiered skirt, and the use of sequins. Now there are 2 approaches. One is to replicate the traditional designs faithfully, and the other is to be more innovative innovative. However, innovation invites a controversy. A lot depends on whether you can withstand the criticism. Mei, Shang, Cheng, and Xun all had distinct styles, but in that era, they were already taking bold and significant steps. I feel that today we lack the same courage and boldness they had. Perhaps there is more pressure from those around us now. They carry their own burdens of expectation. Our generation also feels this pressure. Back then, the four great Dan actors, when you look at their old photos, you can still see how modern their styles were.
While in dialogue and delivery, incorporating modern language elements enhances overall performance, making traditional opera more relatable and accessible to contemporary audiences. With the growing focus on traditional culture in recent years, young people are showing increasing interest in it, and the audience for Peking Opera continues to evolve.
Peking Opera is attracting many young fans, but not all of them go to the theater. They engage with it in different ways. When I had just graduated, the people watching were mostly elderly couples, some even in wheelchairs. Now the audience is mostly middle-aged and younger. The audience is steadily evolving. The vocal techniques and music set the emotional tone for each performance. Xun style singing is lighter, more graceful and fluid compared to other schools, refreshing and uplifting, full of vitality and energy. Reminds me of spring. The Xun School really fits well with today's culture. It captures a youthful, delicate vibe. Also, the current popularity of Hanfu, the traditional Chinese attire, has inspired young people to embrace traditional aesthetics and brought them closer to the world of classical theater. Many audience members come into the theater dressed in Hanfu.
Having worked her way up from an extra to a leading role, Chang deeply understands the importance of artistic accumulation. In her view, the foundation of tradition and the accumulation of stage experience are still the key to becoming an excellent performer.
When I first graduated and joined the Jingju Theater Company of Beijing, I had almost no chance to perform lead roles. I spent 9 years in the background as an extra. Nowadays, young performers have a big advantage. The stage is much bigger for them, and they have more performance opportunities. I am glad I stuck with it back then, because it's hard for anyone to endure 9 years of such loneliness, but I kept it going, and here I am now. When I was young, I learned Shang-style opera, Xun-style, Xiao-style opera, and more. All of that influences my performances today, making me more composed on stage. When you have ample reserves, you have more to draw from. Even the smallest gesture on stage, whether it's a simple movement or a slight change in posture, can carry much more weight in the eyes of the audience. The basic skills are taught in school. You spend 4 or 5 years mastering them. The technical skills are pretty much perfected by then. Many things come from personal insight and experience later on. Reading old books, studying biographies, and watching their recorded performances are far more valuable than practicing 100 times.
Today, Chang passes on this dedication to young actors and blends traditional Peking opera with contemporary themes in newly composed modern Peking opera.
The newly composed modern Peking Opera, The Centennial History of Shogun, was a project we just worked on, where I played a local Beijing girl portraying her life from age 18 to 60, witnessing the transformation of the Shogun steel industry. I truly loved this role, genuinely from the heart, because it brought back memories of my childhood. When I was little, I would visit my mother's factory, carrying my aluminum lunchbox to the canteen. In one scene, my character stands in the moonlight, holding a similar lunchbox and longs for her husband, who's away working at a distant site. Every time I perform this scene, holding the lunchbox, I would immediately picture my mother in her younger days with the same lunchbox in her hand. Every performance, especially when working on a new piece like this, feels like a battle. It's physically demanding. You don't have the luxury of long rehearsal periods, so we have to figure things out on our own and show up ready to perform. Working on newly composed modern opera like this also informs my traditional roles. The techniques I've mastered in traditional opera help enrich my work in modern pieces, and the two feed into each other. There's a constant exchange of strength between the old and the new, so it's important to be strong in both areas.
Looking to the future, Chang is focused on preserving classical Peking opera and uncovering and reviving lesser-known works.
My goal is to work on two parallel tracks. One is to continue performing the classic Xun style works, such as The Matchmaker, which have a strong audience appeal. The other is to bring forgotten works back to life. This year, I brought back Chang Qiuyue, a piece my mentor once performed. And these lesser-known works are seldom performed, but when they are, audiences often say, "The play is incredible. Why has no one performed it before?" I believe with the physical strength and the support of my troupe, I can bring several of these forgotten plays back to life. My personal goal is to revive at least one play a year. However, reviving a play isn't as simple as it seems. Timing, resources, and the availability of the troupe all need to align. You need a script, well-designed vocal arrangements, supportive stage designs, and available rehearsal slots in the theater schedule. All of this is crucial. I've learned to value every moment more, and I make sure to use the time I have wisely. I want to explore more, like the plays of Master Xun that exist only as scripts and were never performed on stage. These works have gradually faded into obscurity. Take Dan Qingyin, for example. It only exists as a script, with no recordings, no footage. But we've managed to reconstruct it and bring it back to life. Reviving the lesser-known plays of the Xun School is something I can contribute to and pass on.
Well, that's it for today's edition of Meet China. From chocolate to fishery to Peking Opera. The stories that we saw today showcases China's genius in blending heritage with innovation. Thanks so much for being with us on this journey. I'm Lily Lu, and I can't wait to see you next week.
Economy, innovation, culture, exploration. Discover the vibrant pulse of China's economy and dive into the rich tapestry of its culture. Embark on a journey of exploration with Meet China. Here, your journey begins.
This presentation was paid for by CGTN. The opinions, views, and claims expressed are those of CGTN and may not necessarily reflect those of CNBC.